She was a small girl, thin and quiet, who lived in a tiny apartment above the streets of the city. Her mother worked long hours, cleaning offices and music halls to make enough money to keep the little family going. The apartment was always a little messy, with old furniture and worn curtains, but it was home. Despite their struggles, the girl always had a sparkle in her eyes, as if she was carrying a secret the world could not yet see. Every day, she would wake early, listening to the sounds of the city, the distant car horns, the chatter of people walking to work, and the soft hum of life all around. She would help her mother prepare breakfast, sweeping the floor and washing dishes with careful hands. She learned quickly how to move quietly, how to make the apartment feel clean and warm, even when money was tight and the walls were thin. Her mother often talked about the music academy where she worked. The little girl would sit on the edge of the kitchen counter, eyes wide, as her mother described grand concert halls, shining floors, and the beautiful instruments that filled the rooms. She loved hearing stories about the pianists who could play melodies that made people cry or laugh or dream. She imagined herself walking among them, her small fingers dancing across the keys, though she had never touched a piano in her life. Sometimes, when her mother was cleaning the music academy late at night, she would peek through the slightly open door. She could see the pianos sitting silently, waiting for someone to play them. Her heart would beat fast. She had no money for lessons, no proper shoes for the polished floors, but the music called to her in a way nothing else could. She would imagine the sound of the keys under her fingers, the way the notes could float through the air and make everyone stop and listen. One evening, her mother had to stay late, and the girl was left alone in the hallway of the academy. The lights were dim, but she could see one piano near the far corner, its surface dusty and neglected. She moved closer slowly, afraid she might be caught, but also drawn by a force she could not explain. She ran her fingers over the keys lightly. They were cold and hard, but something in her heart told her exactly where to place each finger. She pressed a key, and a small note filled the air. She pressed another, and another, until a simple melody began to form. It was not perfect, not trained, but it had a feeling inside it that made her stop breathing for a moment. She had never heard music come from her own hands before. After that night, she could not stop thinking about the piano. Every spare moment, she would imagine the sound of the keys, the way the notes could carry feelings she could not put into words. She would hum melodies while cleaning the apartment, tap out rhythms on the worn table, and dream about the day she could touch the piano again. It became a secret world for her, a place where nothing else mattered. In that world, she was not the daughter of a cleaner. She was not small or poor or invisible. She was a musician, a creator, a girl whose hands could make the air shimmer with sound. Her mother noticed the change in her, though she did not know the reason at first. The girl would pause in her work, her eyes distant, her lips moving as if she were speaking to someone invisible. Her mother would smile quietly, sensing the girl was finding joy somewhere, even in their small life. One evening, after another long day of cleaning, her mother brought home a small notebook. She told the girl she could write down anything she imagined, any music she dreamed of, and perhaps one day she could learn to play properly. The girl clutched the notebook like it was gold, drawing lines, shapes, and little musical notes she had picked up in her imagination. Each mark on the page felt like a promise, a secret kept safe between her and the music. Days turned into weeks, and the girl grew more confident in her imaginary melodies. She could hear a song in her head and figure out how to make her fingers move even without a piano in front of her. She practiced on the table on the back of a chair, tapping out rhythms that only she could hear. It was a lonely practice, but it filled her heart with hope. She started to believe that maybe, just maybe, the world she dreamed about could exist for her too. One afternoon, while her mother was working at the academy, the girl managed to sneak in through the back door. She walked slowly through the halls, careful not to make a sound. There it was again, the piano waiting, silent and patient. She sat down on the bench, her small hands hovering over the keys. She took a deep breath and pressed one key, then another. This time, the melody was longer, flowing from her hands almost naturally. She could feel the vibration in her fingers and hear the music echoing softly around the empty room. It was her first real performance, even if no one was watching. For the first time, she understood what it meant to create something beautiful from nothing. The music was not perfect, it was not learned or polished, but it was hers. She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest she had never known before. In that moment, she realized that she could do this. She could make music, even if the world had never expected her to. It was a small victory, but it was hers entirely. The girl returned home that night with a lightness in her step. She could not tell anyone exactly what she had done, but she knew that something inside her had changed. She carried the music in her heart like a secret treasure, a reminder that even in the smallest, hardest moments of life, there was a place where dreams could begin. She fell asleep thinking of melodies and rhythms, imagining a world where her music could travel far beyond the walls of her tiny apartment and the quiet halls of the academy. Her life did not change overnight. She still helped her mother, still swept floors, and still watched the world move around her with quiet eyes. But she had found something that no one could take away. A spark of talent, a whisper of a dream, and a promise that one day she would touch the piano again. And when she did, everything would be different. Days passed, but the memory of the piano stayed alive in the girl's mind. Every night, she would close her eyes and imagine her fingers gliding over the keys, creating melodies that only she could hear. It became a small secret between her and the music. She tried to hold on to the feeling, replaying it in her mind while helping her mother clean or preparing small meals in their little kitchen. It was her escape, a private world where she could forget about the hardships of life and simply be alive in the notes she imagined. One morning, her mother left early for work, as usual, and the girl found herself staring at the old piano sitting in the corner of a classroom she had cleaned the night before. The door to the music hall had been left slightly open. She hesitated at first, listening to the faint sounds of footsteps from the hallway. No one seemed to notice her. Slowly, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. Her heart raced. She had never been in this hall during the day, and the sunlight streaming through the tall windows made the piano look even more inviting. She climbed onto the bench, her hands trembling slightly. She pressed a key, then another. The sound that filled the room made her smile. It was real, alive, and louder than the small notes she had played in her imagination. She began to experiment, trying different combinations of keys, learning from the sound each one made. She did not know the proper names or techniques, but her intuition guided her. Her fingers moved faster and smoother as she grew more confident, and she felt an unexpected joy, as if the piano had been waiting for her all along. As she played, a janitor walked past the hall and paused at the doorway. He watched her quietly, amazed by how naturally she handled the instrument. Her small hands seemed to find the right notes without effort, and the music sounded gentle yet full of emotion. He didn't speak, fearing he might disturb her, but he made a note to tell her mother that the girl had a gift. The thought made the girl smile even more, though she didn't yet know the world was noticing her. For the next few days, she returned to the piano whenever she could. Each time, she discovered something new: how to make the keys produce softer sounds, how to tap faster for excitement, how to hold a note so it lingered. She started to create short melodies on her own, even if they were simple. Sometimes, she would hum along, feeling the music in her chest, imagining that one day she might play in front of an audience. She never thought it would happen soon. For now, it was enough to feel the music with her hands. One afternoon, the music academy was unusually busy. The girl had been sent there by her mother to help clean while the staff prepared for an evening concert. She moved quietly between rooms, mopping floors and dusting surfaces, trying not to draw attention. She could hear the music of rehearsals coming from other halls, and it only made her fingers itch to play. She glanced at the piano in the corner again, longing to return to it. She wished she could spend hours there, but she had to stay focused on her chores. Suddenly, the hall fell quiet. The rehearsal had ended, and no one was around. The girl took a deep breath and walked over to the piano. She lifted the heavy lid and let her fingers rest lightly on the keys. This time, she played without hesitation. The notes flowed from her heart, more confident than before. She was no longer just exploring. She was expressing herself. Every melody had emotion. Every rhythm had a story. She felt like the piano was alive, responding to her touch, echoing her feelings back to her in music. Her small performance did not go unnoticed. A famous musician happened to walk down the corridor and heard the music. Curious, he peered inside and saw the girl at the piano. His eyes widened in surprise. The talent was raw but undeniable. She did not stop when she saw him. She was too immersed in her music to notice anyone else. The musician could feel the passion in each note, the natural rhythm that seemed almost impossible for someone who had never studied formally. He leaned against the doorway, not wanting to startle her, and listened silently. After she finished her short piece, she looked up and noticed him for the first time. Fear and embarrassment washed over her. She had been caught playing without permission. But instead of scolding her, he smiled gently and applauded softly. "That was beautiful," he said, his voice kind and encouraging. "Do you play often?" The girl shook her head, too shy to speak. He knelt down to her level and said, "You have a natural gift. You should keep playing and let others hear your music. It is rare to find someone who feels the keys like you do without lessons." Those words stayed with her. She had never been praised for anything so meaningful. Her mother had always told her she was smart and hardworking. But this was different. This was about something inside her, something that could touch people's hearts. For the first time, she realized that her secret world might not have to stay hidden forever. She could share her gift and maybe, just maybe, it could take her somewhere she had only dreamed of. Over the following weeks, she continued to visit the piano whenever she could. She practiced in secret, always aware that someone might see her, but the fear was outweighed by the joy of playing. She experimented with different sounds, learned to control the softness and loudness, and began creating her own short compositions. Every time she played, she felt stronger, more confident, more alive. The piano was no longer just an object. It had become her friend, her companion, her voice when words failed. Her mother started to notice subtle changes too. The girl hummed more, smiled more, and seemed lighter in spirit. She asked gently what had changed, and the girl could only shrug and smile. She knew her mother would understand when the time was right. For now, it was enough that she could feel the music within her, that she could transform quiet evenings into moments filled with sound and life. Then came the day when she played and was completely unaware that the hall was not empty. Another musician, passing through, stopped in his tracks. The notes that filled the space were unusual, almost magical in their simplicity. He watched as her fingers moved instinctively, weaving a melody that told a story without words. When she finally noticed him, she froze, unsure of what to do. But instead of anger or reprimand, he nodded approvingly and whispered, "Keep going. Don't stop. You have something special." Her heart leapt. It was the first real validation of her talent, the first recognition that her gift was not just a private dream but something that could touch others. From that moment, the girl began to believe in herself in a new way. She practiced more deliberately, even finding small moments to study technique by watching the musicians who visited the academy. She learned how to listen carefully, how to mimic rhythms, and how to make each note mean something. Though she still did not have formal lessons, she grew more skilled every day. The piano became a part of her identity, a secret that defined her in a world that often ignored her. She was no longer just the daughter of a cleaner. She was a musician, a girl with a voice that could speak through music alone. Even though her life at home remained the same, with chores and small struggles, the girl carried the piano within her. Every time she played, she felt hope, excitement, and possibility. She began to imagine what it would be like if one day, she could perform in front of people who truly appreciated her gift. She did not know when or how, but the seed of her dream had been planted, and it would grow with every note she played. One quiet afternoon, the girl found herself in the music academy again, with her mother busy in another hall. The day was bright, and sunlight poured through the large windows, illuminating the piano she had grown to love. She walked slowly toward it, her heart racing with excitement. She felt a mix of nervousness and joy. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a friend, a companion that listened without judgment and responded to her emotions with every note. As she lifted the heavy lid and placed her fingers on the keys, she felt an unusual sense of calm. She pressed one key, then another, allowing a melody to flow naturally from her heart. The notes were gentle yet expressive, carrying the stories of her quiet days, her small struggles, and her hidden dreams. She closed her eyes, letting her imagination guide her fingers, and for a moment, she forgot the world outside. She was lost in the music, and the music embraced her in return. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hallway. She froze, her small hands hovering over the keys. A group of people entered the hall, famous artists who had come to the academy for a rehearsal. They had not expected anyone to be there. At first, she was frightened, thinking they would scold her. But when they heard the melody, they stopped. Their eyes widened in surprise, and they exchanged whispers. The music was raw, untrained, yet filled with emotion and depth that was rare even among seasoned musicians. One of the artists, a well-known pianist, stepped closer. He watched silently as her fingers moved with a natural rhythm, her small hands finding notes that seemed to flow effortlessly. She did not notice him at first. She was too absorbed in her playing. But when the final note lingered in the air, she looked up and saw the audience she had never imagined. Fear and embarrassment washed over her. She had been caught playing without permission, but the reaction was not what she expected. The artists were not angry. They were amazed. The famous pianist smiled and approached her. "You have an extraordinary gift," he said gently. "Most people study for years to reach this level of feeling in their music. You do it naturally." The girl's eyes widened. She had never heard anyone speak about her playing in such a way. Her heart swelled with pride and disbelief. She wanted to speak, to ask questions, to understand how her simple melodies could make such an impact, but words failed her. Encouraged by his presence, she began to play again. This time, her fingers moved with more confidence, as if the piano itself was guiding her. She played a longer piece, weaving emotions into every note. The artists listened in awe, some leaning closer, others closing their eyes to absorb the music fully. They were struck by how someone so young, untrained, and unknown could create such beauty. It was a rare moment, one that would be remembered by everyone present. After she finished, the pianist knelt down to her level and said, "You must continue to play. This is a gift that the world needs to hear. Do not hide it." His words were like a key turning in a lock, opening a door she had only dreamed of. She felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of happiness, pride, and determination. She had always believed in her own melodies, but now she realized that others could see their value too. Over the next few weeks, the girl was introduced to informal guidance by the artists. They did not pressure her or force lessons upon her. Instead, they encouraged her to experiment, to listen, and to trust her instincts. They would show her small techniques, simple tips that would help her refine her playing without taking away the natural expression that made her music special. She soaked up every bit of advice, her curiosity and passion growing with each session. Her life at home remained much the same, but her world had expanded. She would wake early, excited for the moments she could spend at the piano. She practiced carefully, learning to control her strength, to hold notes, and to play with emotion. She began creating small compositions, simple yet moving pieces that carried her personality and dreams. Each melody was a story, a reflection of her life and the emotions she felt but could not always express in words. One afternoon, she was playing a particularly complex melody when a group of students from the academy entered the hall. They had heard about the girl who could play like a natural musician and had come to see for themselves. She played without noticing them at first, her fingers moving instinctively over the keys. When she finally looked up, she saw their amazed faces, and a shy smile spread across hers. The students whispered among themselves, recognizing the talent that lay before them. They offered words of encouragement and praise, further boosting her confidence. The girl's mother noticed the changes too. She could see the glow in her daughter's eyes, the excitement in her step, and the passion that filled her days. One evening, she told her, "I am proud of you, not just for your music, but for the joy and courage you carry with it. Remember, this is just the beginning. Keep going and the world will notice." The girl hugged her mother tightly, feeling the warmth of love and support that made her journey possible. As the days passed, more artists and students became aware of her gift. They would stop by the hall, quietly listening as she played. Sometimes they would offer gentle suggestions. Other times they would simply watch, letting her music speak for itself. The girl learned to accept the attention with humility, understanding that her talent was not just for herself but for those who could be touched by it. Her confidence grew, and with it, her creativity. She began to experiment with rhythms, to explore different combinations of keys, and to create melodies that conveyed the stories of her life. She discovered that music could express joy, sadness, hope, and longing, all at once. Each note became a word, each melody a sentence, and together they formed a language that was uniquely hers. One day, while playing, she noticed a small audience gathering quietly at the back of the hall. Among them were some of the most respected musicians in the city. She felt a mix of nervousness and excitement, but took a deep breath and let her fingers move. The music flowed naturally, carrying her emotions and telling a story without words. When she finished, the hall was silent for a moment, then filled with applause. She could hardly believe it. The musicians smiled, some nodding with admiration, and she realized that her music could reach people, touch hearts, and inspire others. From that moment on, the girl understood that her journey had truly begun. She was no longer just a hidden talent or a secret dreamer. She had been seen, recognized, and encouraged by those who knew the world of music best. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, mistakes, and moments of doubt, but she had discovered her voice, her passion, and her purpose. The piano was no longer just a companion. It was a bridge to a future she had never dared to imagine. A future filled with possibility, recognition, and the magic of music that could reach far beyond the walls of the academy. After the moment of recognition, the girl's life began to change in ways she could not have imagined. Her secret world of melodies had opened doors she never knew existed. Artists from the academy started giving her informal guidance, taking time to teach her small techniques and tips to refine her natural talent. She learned to control the softness and strength of her notes, to hold the melodies so they lingered in the air, and to play with emotions that could touch the hearts of those listening. The girl spent every spare moment at the piano. Her fingers moved with more confidence now, exploring new rhythms and creating melodies that were entirely her own. She experimented with speed and tempo, with loudness and silence, learning how to convey stories without words. The piano became her companion, her teacher, and her diary. Each piece she played reflected the emotions she felt in her heart, the happiness of small victories, the sorrow of lonely nights, and the hope for a future that seemed brighter every day. Her mother watched with pride as her daughter transformed. She saw the joy and confidence growing in the girl, and it made all the long hours of cleaning and sacrifice worth it. One evening, after a particularly long day, she hugged her daughter and said, "I never imagined this would happen, but I always believed in you. Keep going, and do not let fear stop you." The girl smiled, feeling the warmth of her mother's love. It was a reminder that no matter how far she went, she had a foundation of support and care that would never falter. As word of her talent spread, more people began to take notice. Students from the academy would quietly gather to listen, often standing in the shadows, mesmerized by the music she created. Some would ask questions about her techniques, curious to understand how someone so young and untrained could play with such feeling. The girl was shy at first, but she began to share her thoughts and ideas, explaining how she listened to the piano and let her hands guide her. She realized that music was not just about skill. It was about feeling, about understanding the story that the notes could tell. The guidance from the artists was invaluable. They encouraged her to attend workshops, to observe other musicians, and to try new pieces that challenged her. She began to learn small lessons about posture, rhythm, and timing, but always in a way that allowed her natural expression to remain. Each session became a journey, a step forward in understanding her own abilities and pushing the boundaries of what she thought she could do. Despite the excitement, the girl never forgot her roots. Her life at home remained simple, with chores, small meals, and the quiet routines of their modest apartment. She still helped her mother every day, sweeping, cleaning, and cooking, but now she carried the light of her music in every step. It gave her energy and hope, making even the hardest days easier to bear. The music had become more than a skill. It was a source of strength, a reminder that she could rise above her circumstances. One day, the girl was asked to play for a small gathering of musicians at the academy. It was a casual event, an opportunity for students and artists to share ideas and listen to new talents. She felt nervous but also excited. This was the first time she would play in front of a small audience, and she wanted to do her best. As she sat at the piano, she took a deep breath and let her fingers flow across the keys. The music filled the room, soft at first, then growing in complexity and emotion. She felt the audience responding, leaning forward, listening intently, and she realized that her music could truly connect with people. After her performance, several artists approached her, offering praise and encouragement. They were impressed by how she could tell a story through her music, how she made each note carry meaning. One artist said, "You have a rare gift. Most people study for years and cannot convey emotion as clearly as you do. Never stop creating." The girl felt a surge of pride and determination. She knew she still had much to learn, but the recognition fueled her passion and drive. In the weeks that followed, she continued to practice diligently, always seeking to improve while staying true to her unique style. She created new compositions, experimenting with themes and emotions that reflected her life experiences. She learned to play with intention, understanding that each note had the power to influence how someone felt. Her music became a reflection of her soul, a language that spoke directly to the hearts of those who listened. Her confidence grew alongside her skills. She began to approach the piano with a sense of purpose, knowing that her music mattered. She experimented with longer pieces, combining melodies she had learned from others with her own creations. The artists who guided her were amazed at her progress and encouraged her to keep challenging herself. They saw a potential that went far beyond her age and background, and they wanted to help her reach it. Despite the growing recognition, the girl remained humble. She remembered the quiet days of imagining melodies in her small apartment, the secret moments when she first pressed the piano keys and felt the music come alive. Those memories grounded her, reminding her that talent alone was not enough. It was passion, dedication, and love for music that made her journey meaningful. She continued to cherish every practice session, every note played, and every melody created, knowing that each one was a step toward her dreams. Her mother remained her anchor. She celebrated every milestone, comforted her in moments of frustration, and shared in the joy of her successes. Their bond grew stronger, built on love, sacrifice, and shared dreams. The girl knew that no matter how far she went, her mother's belief in her would always provide strength and inspiration. As the girl grew in skill and confidence, she began to envision a future where she could perform on larger stages, share her music with more people, and inspire others through her story. She dreamed of a life where her talent would be recognized not just as a rare gift, but as a testament to the power of dedication, courage, and love. Each day at the piano brought her closer to that vision, and she embraced every challenge, every lesson, and every moment of growth with determination and joy. The girl's journey was no longer just a personal secret. It was becoming a story of hope and inspiration. She was the daughter of a cleaner, yet she had discovered a world of music, mentorship, and possibility. Her life was still simple, her home still modest, but she carried with her the confidence, skill, and passion that would one day change everything. And through it all, the piano remained her constant companion, a bridge to a future filled with dreams realized and melodies shared with the world. The day of her first public performance arrived, and the girl felt a mixture of excitement, nerves, and anticipation. She had practiced for months, refining her melodies, experimenting with emotion, and learning to convey stories through her music. The piano that had once been a secret friend in a quiet hall would now be the bridge to a world she had only dreamed of. She took a deep breath, feeling her mother's reassuring hand on her shoulder, and walked onto the small stage. The audience was filled with familiar faces, artists who had guided her, students who had admired her playing, and a few teachers from the academy. But there were also strangers, drawn by word of mouth, curious to see the girl who had captured the hearts of so many with her talent. She felt her stomach twist with nerves, but she reminded herself of all the quiet hours she had spent with the piano, of the melodies she had imagined in her tiny apartment, and of the encouragement from those who had believed in her. With a deep breath, she sat down at the piano and placed her fingers on the keys. The first notes were soft, tentative, but full of feeling. As she continued, the music grew, weaving a story of hope, struggle, joy, and perseverance. Her fingers moved instinctively, guided by the months of practice and the emotions she had poured into her compositions. She felt the audience leaning forward, listening intently, and it gave her courage. The hall seemed to disappear, leaving only her, the piano, and the music that connected them all. Every note she played carried a part of her life. Her mother's sacrifices, the quiet days of cleaning, the secret moments of imagination, and the exhilaration of discovery. The music was not perfect, but it was alive, real, and deeply human. She could see faces in the audience reacting. Smiles, tears, nods of understanding, and it made her heart swell. For the first time, she realized that her music had power, that it could reach beyond her own feelings and touch the hearts of others. As she played, she noticed a group of famous artists sitting quietly, listening with admiration. They had been the first to recognize her talent, and now they were witnessing the result of her hard work and determination. She felt a rush of gratitude toward them, remembering the day she had been discovered, the gentle guidance they had provided, and the encouragement that had fueled her passion. Every note was a thank you, every melody a reflection of their belief in her. When she reached the final chord, there was a moment of silence. The audience sat still, absorbing the last vibrations of the piano. Then, slowly, applause began, swelling into a roar of appreciation. The girl's eyes widened in amazement. She had done it. She had shared her gift, and it had been received with love, respect, and awe. Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled, feeling a warmth she had never known before. After the performance, people came forward to congratulate her. Students and teachers alike praised her talent, remarking on the depth of emotion in her music. The artists who had mentored her hugged her and whispered words of pride and encouragement. She felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond the applause. It was the knowledge that she had truly connected with others through her music, that her passion and dedication had created something meaningful. Her mother stood at the side of the stage, tears streaming down her face. She had watched her daughter grow from a small, curious girl into a confident young musician, and the pride in her eyes was overwhelming. When the girl finally ran into her mother's arms, they held each other tightly, sharing a moment of pure joy and love. The journey had been long and difficult, but this was the reward, the realization that dreams, no matter how humble, could come true with perseverance, courage, and support. The performance marked a turning point in the girl's life. She continued to play, gradually taking on larger audiences and more challenging pieces. She was invited to collaborate with artists she had once only admired from afar, and her music began to gain recognition beyond the academy. Each opportunity was a chance to grow, to learn, and to inspire others with the story of a girl who had started with nothing but a dream and a secret love for the piano. Despite the growing attention, she remained grounded. She continued to help her mother at home, valuing the simple routines that had shaped her character and work ethic. She remembered the quiet days of imagining melodies, the first time she touched the piano, and the moments of discovery that had brought her to this point. Those memories kept her humble, reminding her that talent was only meaningful when paired with dedication, kindness, and heart. The girl's story soon became an inspiration for others. Young musicians who struggled to find their place, people who had been overlooked or underestimated, and families who faced financial difficulties all found hope in her journey. They saw that talent could flourish anywhere, that opportunities could arise from the most unexpected places, and that perseverance and belief in oneself were powerful forces. Over time, she began to create her own compositions that were performed publicly, each one telling a story drawn from her experiences. Her music carried the essence of her life, the struggles she had overcome, the love she had received, and the dreams she had nurtured. Audiences were captivated, not just by her skill, but by the honesty and emotion that radiated from her playing. She had become a voice for her generation, a reminder that even the smallest beginnings could lead to remarkable achievements. The girl continued to study and learn, always seeking ways to improve, while maintaining the authenticity that made her music special. She worked with mentors, explored new styles, and experimented with complex pieces, but never lost sight of the joy and passion that had sparked her journey. She knew that music was not just about technical perfection. It was about connection, expression, and the ability to touch hearts. Years later, when she looked back on her journey, she saw a path filled with small steps, secret melodies, late nights, and moments of discovery. She remembered the dusty piano in the quiet hall, the first notes that had startled and amazed the musicians, and the encouragement that had given her courage. She understood that every struggle, every moment of doubt, and every quiet practice session had led her to this life. A life filled with music, recognition, and the fulfillment of dreams once thought impossible. The girl, once the daughter of a cleaner, had become a musician whose melodies reached far beyond her home, her neighborhood, and even the academy that had nurtured her. She had turned a secret passion into a life-changing journey, touching the hearts of countless people and inspiring a new generation of dreamers. Her story was a testament to the power of talent, dedication, and love, and it reminded the world that greatness can emerge from the most unexpected places. And through it all, the piano remained her companion, her voice, and her bridge to a future that had once seemed unimaginable. Each note she played carried the essence of her journey, the struggles, the victories, the love, and the dreams, and it echoed the timeless truth that with passion, courage, and perseverance, even the humblest beginnings can lead to extraordinary endings.